Ever since I started this section of videos on my channel, there's a certain trilogy that I felt would benefit greatly from this particular format. And the Dark Knight trilogy is one that I have talked about before in the past, but I feel like the definitive videos, these are the ones that could be the ones that I consider to be the best examples of that going forward. I was thinking about this for the longest time on whether or not to do them, but the more I thought about it, the more that I felt that they needed to be done, because each one of them has a really fun story and a memory attached to it, because I saw all of these movies as they were coming out. I remember in 2005 when Batman Begins dropped, there were these advertisements and posters all over the place, even in newspapers. Yes, there were these things called newspapers that used to be delivered to your front door, and the news used to be on paper. Some people may not remember this right now, but it's a very interesting thing because I remember seeing that, and at that same point of time, my granddad was visiting. And my dad was at work, he was out, and so unfortunately he wasn't there around for the movie, but my granddad asked, like, hey, what do you want to do? And he knew that I watched movies, he knew that I, wanted to probably do something like that, and it just so happened that Batman Begins was running. But it's also interesting because this is not the kind of movie that he would have normally gone and seen. But he was game. And what was so cool about it is that he was like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. Let's get 3 tickets. I'll take you. I'll take your mom, my daughter, with us, of course, and we'll go check out the movie. And we went to go see it in the middle of the afternoon on a weekend, if I'm recalling correctly. And I remember not really knowing exactly what the movie was going to be, what was going to happen in it. And I think I can say that for pretty much everyone who was in the theater that time. You have to understand, Batman Begins was kind of out of left field. It is a movie that radically changed how comic book movies have been made since. In the last almost 20 years, so much has transformed in the genre. And a lot of that is attributed to what this trilogy pulled. And I think what Christopher Nolan managed to pull with Batman Begins is nothing short of remarkable. I have seen this movie so many times since, and as far as origin stories for Batman go, this is pretty much the perfect one. They nailed it in every single respect, bringing this character to life. And this version of the character to life, especially honing in on the idea of fear that is driving him. This sense that something is wrong with the world, but also something that is inherent within him because of the tragedies that he's faced as he was a boy. Of course, seeing his parents get murdered. And all of these things have caused this inherent sense of just fear and tension throughout, and he has to embrace that and become what he eventually does. And the way the film explores that, from his exploration around the world, leading to the League of Shadows, meeting Ra's al Ghul and Ducard, and eventually getting training with them, and then taking those things that he learned over there and taking it back to Gotham and becoming the Batman. It's really, really great stuff, and I love how the movie was able to capture all of that. That entire first act, especially when you're in the mountains with the League of Shadows. I love the world building over there. So much you learn about this organization and what they're doing, and understanding their approach to things, and also realizing that at some point of time, it stops being this thing where it's like, yeah, face your fear, and it becomes doing something really terrible to make people suffer. Eventually, that leads to a confrontation over there, but once he gets back to Gotham, Bruce realizes this place is completely corrupt, and the way that corruption and rundown sense of Gotham is shown is excellent. There's a very gothic sense to Batman Begins throughout that is captured excellently by Nolan, and also by cinematographer Wally Pfister, who does a really good job of lensing this thing. This is a gorgeous movie. I actually just went back and I was watching it. There's so many excellent shots in here. It was actually nominated for Best Cinematography at the Oscars, which I think it absolutely deserved. And I think what he did with this movie, as well as The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, when it came to the IMAX photography in those movies, is nothing short of remarkable. And again, the way the world building was done, especially with Gotham, feeling like a character in itself when you're watching some of the scenes in your play out, is truly impressive. And Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne is excellent. And I love the fact that it manages to strike that balance really well between him being Bruce Wayne and him being Batman. Because you have to understand they're two completely different things. You cannot be in a Batman mode when you're Bruce Wayne. You have to be Bruce Wayne, the billionaire playboy who has, models around him and can on a dime buy a hotel just by saying, I'm buying your hotel. That's things that he can do as Bruce Wayne, and he has to keep up that appearance. But then as Batman, he is this dark, brooding presence who watches you from the shadows, and sometimes you can't even sense that he's over there. And the way the movie plays that out is excellent stuff. That first scene when he first takes on Falcone's thugs and eventually gets Falcone arrested, really, really great. Couple that with a really great Michael Caine as Alfred, which one of the core things about Batman lore is that if you don't have a great Alfred to Bruce, you're gonna have some faltering. And one of the good things about Batman media overall is that I've never really felt like they messed up on that opportunity. Even down the line, when you got Jeremy Irons or Andy Serkis, I feel like you just got great Alfreds. Like you had someone who had that connection with Bruce of a parent when he didn't have any. And I think Michael Caine might be my favorite one. He played it so well, and there's moments that really do get you. It's those little things that make Batman Begins as good as it is. It's the fact that it emphasizes just how important its characters are. Even when it comes to its supporting characters like Rachel, played in this one by Katie Holmes, in the next one it's Maggie Gyllenhaal, or when it comes to Jonathan Crane, played by Cillian Murphy, who is of course Scarecrow, which is fun watching now because you see him as Scarecrow. This is the first thing that he did with Chris Nolan, and you just look at the partnerships they've had since then. And now he's a Best Actor winner, and Christopher Nolan won Best Director and Best Picture for Oppenheimer. All three of those things happened. So it's just very interesting, looking at the history to that. It's like, here's where it started. And when you see him as Scarecrow, he's really great and really, really menacing and genuinely feels like this threat to Batman. And if his powers go awry, it could be mass panic for Gotham, which of course does happen because Ra's al Ghul, who is actually Liam Neeson, not Ken Watanabe, eventually shows up to Gotham like, I lived, by the way, and I'm, here to take on Gotham. This city needs to be, purged from the inside out, and this is the way to do it. That entire final act handling is great. It's also good because up until that point, you have this realism sense, and somewhere along the way, the movie also is there to remind you, we can be a comic book movie. We can be a fun movie. And the way it manages to make that balance work is excellent. You have scenes like that throughout, which sort of ride that line very carefully. And that's the thing with the entire trilogy. It manages to do it in this movie, and then of course in The Dark Knight, and also quite a bit in The Dark Knight Rises, because things escalate more and more as the movies progress. Like the Batmobile chase in this is terrific stuff. Such a great scene. The score over it from Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard, excellent stuff. I keep listening to that score all the time. The entire trilogy has excellent music, honestly. This point where he calls in all the bats to Arkham Asylum is really, really great too. That is also one thing which is like, it's right out of a comic book. That's something you'd expect to see over there. The way the Batcave is shown. Again, the world building elements of this are truly phenomenal. Oh, I haven't talked about Gordon. How could I not? Gary Oldman. I love this version of Gordon so much. This is one of my favorite Gordons, I think. Excellently done in this entire movie, and in this entire trilogy for that matter. And how he eventually comes to trust Batman when he's first a little wary of him, like, I don't know about this guy. But then he realizes, like, you want the right thing. You want to do the right thing. And so, we're gonna hesitantly work together, and hopefully we can get some stuff done in the process, because God knows my police force is being incompetent as hell, including my partner Flass over here, which I think, again, really, really great handled partnership. And I love the dynamic that they had then over the next couple of movies. And of course, Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox. I mean, how can you go wrong here? This is one of the greats of all time for a reason. I mean, you get Morgan Freeman in a movie, you've got something good going. I'll talk more about him in The Dark Knight because I think he's awesome in that one. The action in the movie is great. All the sequences are phenomenal. That final train fight is excellent. Again, all of it, the lessons that they were working with in this entire movie and that final moment with Batman and Gordon, I loved it. I mean, there's really nothing that I can say about Batman Begins that hasn't been said yet. But I do go back to that story about going and seeing it first in theaters with my granddad. It's one of those memories that, you know, a few years ago when I was thinking about it, like when he passed some years ago, I was thinking about what to say, and that's the story that came up. You know, it's just that one thing about him that I felt like, you know, would always be there. And while I know that's silly to say, it's like, oh, it's just a Batman movie. It's like, yeah, but again, you have to remember, he didn't do that. He doesn't go for movies like that. And the fact that he went, after that we walked out and he was like, do you want to like see if there's something to get from the movie? And they were like this, there was like the store nearby that had a bunch of action figures. Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things, and he was like that until the very end. And so I do, you know, look back on that memory pretty fondly, and the things that my grandfather was, you know, stood for. He was just a really great guy. I mean, what more can I say about it? I feel like it's just the perfect movie. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I can say that for the entire trilogy. This, The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, I feel like these three movies are just as good as they can get. And I know The Dark Knight Rises is one that gets some contention, but I'll talk more about that when it's time to, because I have a lot to say there as well. But I'm looking forward to discussing that more with you guys. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more videos very, very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. I'm looking forward to sharing Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises in a very short bit. And I'll see you guys at the movies.